Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Accelerated ID series. Today, we're here to talk about ADDIE. So if you are thinking about instructional design or you are working on becoming an instructional designer, ADDIE is one of those models that you will become familiar with. As you begin your job hunting, you're going to see that many jobs mention ADDIE or instructional system design models. So today we're just going to do a quick little introduction of what ADDIE is. And ADDIE is a systematic and flexible instructional system design model that we use as instructional designers to help us build learning experiences. And it could be any kind of learning experience. We could be building for an instructor-led course or virtual instructor-led training. We could be creating an instructional video. We could be creating e-learning. And we can plug into this ADDIE instructional system design model and follow it, and that can help guide our learning build process. And as you can see here on the screen, ADDIE has 5 distinct phases. We have analysis, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. And those phases, those phase titles, I should say, are pretty self-explanatory about what they are. But we are going to break those down here over the next few minutes and talk about each of those. Now, you will also see as you start looking for jobs, other models mentioned, but I do think it's worth mentioning that ADDIE is like the foundational model that many of those other models were adapted from or built off of, okay? So if you know ADDIE, it's a very good model that you can use and follow. Now, I often get asked the question, which model is the best, Shawntay? Well, my answer is whichever model you're going to use consistently, that is the best model. So it could be SAM, or it could be ADDIE, or it could be something else. It really doesn't matter as long as you're committed to using it and you plug into that. As you become a more experienced instructional designer, you're going to find places where you might shorten the ADDIE process, where you're just like, oh, I'm going to combine these two things. And that's okay. But as you are first getting started, I recommend that you plug into each of these phases and work through them, because I think that it does help people build better learning experiences. All right, so let's jump into, and hopefully my slides, my little clicker didn't just die. I realized today that I had forgot to charge it. Okay, so let me tell you why it is that I like ADDIE for new instructional designers or aspiring instructional designers. So I like ADDIE for a variety of reasons. One, it's systematic, it's structured. So in each of the different phases, there are very specific things that you do. And again, you'll see that those are repeatable. But I like it because you could go, oh, analysis, here are the 5 things I need to do. Design, here are the few things that I need to do. Develop, I need to put it all together now. So it's like having a blueprint for your learning experience build, regardless of what it is that you are building. I also like that it's flexible. So as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you can use it for instructor-led, you can use it for virtual instructor-led, you can use it for instructional videos, right? So you can use it in different modalities. It works for a variety of things. And then I like that it's repeatable. So the phases stay the same every time. What you do inside the phases, you might do all the things or a few of the things depending on what it is that you're building, but essentially it's repeatable, right? So you could pick it up and plug it into this learning experience, and then you can pick it up and plug it into this learning experience, and it all works. I also like that it's collaborative, because in your analysis phase, you're going to work with your subject matter experts. You're going to have your kickoff meeting or your scoping meeting, and you're going to meet with your business owner. You might possibly meet with your end users, right? And then along the way, you're checking in to make sure that you're still in alignment about what the outcomes of the learning experience are and what the content is that you are creating. Let's talk about analysis. So analysis is really about collecting information, right? That is what we're doing. We're analyzing what information we have. We're analyzing what information we need to figure out. We're analyzing who the audience is, We're analyzing the problem that we're trying to solve, right? So we were in this analysis phase. And to figure some of these things out, you will complete what we call a training needs analysis. And we're going to talk about that more in just a second. We're also going to define who is our target audience for this learning. Sometimes we do that formally in the form of creating a learning persona. Sometimes we write a paragraph about who that learner is and what their pain points are. So it really varies on how you address that piece. And then we encourage, it doesn't always happen, that you host a scoping meeting or what we call a kickoff meeting, or if you're following SAM, it's called a savvy start. So you have this scoping meeting where you bring all the different parties together and you work through the training needs analysis and ask probing questions about that learning experience, okay? And then we also do subject matter interviews in this phase so that we can get more information from our experts. And we use all of this to help support us when we move into that design phase, which we'll talk about in just a second. But before we do that, I want to talk about your needs analysis just a little bit more. Now, in our Instructional Design Starter Kit, which is free, and you can access that at AcceleratedID.com/kit, there is a training analysis document in that free kit that you can download, review all the questions, see how it's set up if you want to grab that. So at the start of each of our projects, we'll get a little bit of information. Now, I break my analysis up into 3 or 4 phases. So step 1, when somebody asks me if they ask me to build a training solution for them or a learning solution, then what I typically do is I'll send them some questions. And you'll see that inside of that free kit. If you download it, it'll say step 1, and here are some of the questions that I ask. So after I get those questions back, step 2 for me would be that I schedule a scoping meeting or a kickoff meeting. Then in step 3, this is where I bring all the stakeholders together. And whenever we talk about stakeholders, we're just talking about people who have a stake in this project, which could be the business owner. And whenever we say business owner in the corporate world, we're essentially saying the person who owns this project. So if it is a sales team and the sales team comes to the training team and says, can you build this? Then the sales team is the business owner. Okay. So I just want to give you some of that vocabulary as I'm using it. And so I'd bring together all the stakeholders, which would be the business owner. It could be my boss. It could be all the different members of the project team, the e-learning developer, a project manager, if I have one, subject matter experts. And if I'm lucky, it could be an end user who will ultimately participate in this training. And then we go through some questioning techniques to really get to the heart of whatever the issue is. So with training requests, oftentimes you'll hear things like, hey, Shawntay, imagine that the business owner is the sales team. I need to increase sales. I want you to build a training that will increase the sales for each of my salespeople. So, okay, great. Well, there are a lot of things that might influence sales. So what is the issue, right? Like where are your salespeople getting hung up? What are the challenges that they're encountering? So we use this questioning process to really uncover what that root cause of the problem is. And from there, then we can build a learning experience around that. Now, in addition to doing the needs analysis, we really need to understand who our audience is for this learning solution, right? So if it's sales representatives and I need to increase their sales, well, I need to know that they're in sales. It would be helpful for me to know how long they've been in sales. It would be helpful for me to understand what are their challenges. Are they having challenges with the technology to sign people up? Are they having challenges with overcoming objections? Are they having challenges because the price point is super high, right? So it's really important for me to understand what's causing the issues that might be influencing how much they actually bring in dollars for their sales. So these learner personas give you a visual of who your learner is, so that whenever you're writing your content, you have that person in your mind's eye and you can visualize who they are, where they are in their career, and what their struggles are. So again, this could be visual, or sometimes people will just write it down in paragraph form or bullet point form. There's no right or wrong on it. It's just really what works for you. So we do all of that analysis work. That's like laying the foundation so that we can come into this design phase and begin to actually design our learning experience. So designing and developing are different. So designing is really like where we create that game plan or that blueprint. And then when we get to develop, we actually build the thing, right? So in our design phase, what we're doing is taking all that information you collected through your scoping meeting, through subject matter interviews, by looking at existing resources, analyzing what your problems are, what your outcomes need to be. And you take all of that and you create this design. Your design can show up in the form of an outline. It can show up in the form of a course plan or a blueprint. Or if you're working on something like a video or e-learning, then it could show up in the form of a storyboard. Okay. So you're really just creating the design that people can react to. So once that's finished, you might share it with your boss, or you might share it with your business owner who ultimately owns the training. You might share it with the subject matter expert, right? So that they can go, hey, 2 thumbs up, you're on the right track, or oh, I think we need to change this whole section here. So it's better to do that whenever you're in this more skeletal framework than after you have actually built the whole thing, because it takes a whole lot more work to rework when something is finished versus when it's still in that design phase. So in that design phase, again, it's like you're creating that high level view of what this learning experience is going to look like. Then we move into develop. So our develop phase is where you take all the different pieces and you build it. You build the thing. And the thing can be an instructor-led course, which it might be a slide deck, a facilitator guide, participant workbook, one-pagers, different engagement activities, group discussions, things like that. Or it could be virtual instructor-led, which has some of the similar resources, but for a virtual environment. Or it could be e-learning. So maybe you're building in Rise, or maybe you're building in Storyline 360 or Captivate or something like that. Or it could be an instructional video, right? Or it could be you're building a separate quiz or creating that facilitator guide. It could be really any of those things. So develop is like where you get hands-on and you're actually creating the thing. By the time you finish this phase, you actually have something that you can implement or that you can launch. We kind of covered that, so I'm just going to skip that slide. So implementation, like I said before, is like you actually have something that you can launch, you can implement, you can put out in the world for people to learn. And that could be an in-room delivery where somebody is standing in front of the room, or they're standing in front of a camera like I am and giving some sort of virtual presentation and engaging the room. So that is part of implementation. Another aspect of implementation is where we train the trainer. So as an instructional designer who creates something for someone else who will actually lead that training, sometimes it's important or necessary for us to train them how to deliver that content. And that might be a walkthrough, like, hey, okay, so here's slide 1, here's what you do, here's what's in the facilitator guide, here's what's in the participant workbook, here's how all these pieces come together, here is how this activity is set up and run. So we give all that information and train the trainer. Also in implementation, we might pilot a course. We might pilot it virtually, we might pilot it live. And then what we do as instructional designers, we kind of evaluate what it is actually like live. Is it as we imagined it in our head? Is it like playing out in the room in the way that we had anticipated or expected? If not, that is our opportunity to go back and make changes. I told you earlier, you can get an example of our training needs analysis in our instructional design starter kit. There is also a breakdown of ADDIE inside of this starter kit. So you should be all set. It has the ADDIE model that I showed you at the beginning, and it has a summary of each of the phases plus activities that you do in each of those phases.